I adjusted the strap of my plain black dress, feeling entirely out of place in the glittering ballroom. Waiters drifted past with trays of caviar, and the air smelled of expensive perfume and old money. I clutched my glass of lukewarm champagne, my knuckles turning white. Tonight was supposed to be the night. Julian had been hinting at it for months. "Wait for the company anniversary, Elena," he'd said with that charming crooked smile I loved. "Big things are happening for us." I had spent the last 3 weeks barely sleeping. I ghosted at the speech he was about to give. I pulled an all-nighter fixing the quarterly financial reports so he wouldn't look like a fool in front of the board. I was the invisible glue holding Sterling Corp together, and tonight I thought I was finally going to be seen. The lights dimmed. A hush fell over the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen," Julian's voice boomed over the speakers. He looked magnificent on stage, wearing the tuxedo I had picked out for him. "Thank you for celebrating 5 years of Sterling Corp." I stepped forward, my heart hammering against my ribs. He was looking into the crowd. I smiled, waiting for his eyes to find mine. "I have 2 announcements tonight," Julian said, his grin widening. "First, Sterling Corp is merging with the Grand Harrison Enterprises." Applause thundered. "That was the merger I had negotiated." "And second," Julian continued, "I want to bring up the woman who made this possible. My partner in life and business." Tears pricked my eyes. I took a breath, ready to walk up the stairs. "Please welcome my future wife," Julian shouted. "Sasha Harrison." My foot froze in midair. The room erupted in cheers. A spotlight swung past me and landed on a woman in a shimmering red gown near the front. "Sasha." She glided up the stairs, laughing, and threw her arms around Julian. He kissed her deeply, right there in front of everyone. My glass slipped from my hand. It shattered on the marble floor, but the sound was drowned out by the clapping. I turned and ran. I didn't stop until I reached the secluded backstage hallway. My chest felt like it was caving in. I leaned against the cold wall, gasping for air. A moment later, the heavy stage door burst open. Julian walked in, loosening his tie, with Sasha clinging to his arm. They were laughing. "Julian," I screamed. He stopped, blinking as if he was surprised to see me. "Elena, what are you doing back here?" "This area is for VIPs." "VIPs?" I choked out, stepping toward him. "I'm your girlfriend. We've been together for 5 years. You just proposed to her?" Sasha looked me up and down, her lip curling in disgust. "Julian, who is this? Is this the little secretary you told me about?" "She's an employee," Julian said smoothly. He didn't even look guilty. "I'm not just an employee," I yelled, my voice shaking. "I wrote your speech. I fixed your ledgers. I built you, Julian." Julian laughed. It was a cold, cruel sound that echoed in the hallway. He stepped closer, towering over me. "You built me?" He scoffed. "Elena, look at you. You're wearing a dress from a discount rack. You have no name, no money, no connections." "I have talent," I whispered, though my confidence was shattering. "I have loyalty." "Loyalty doesn't pay the bills," Julian sneered. "Sasha comes with a merger that will make me a billionaire. You come with nothing. How can you do this?" I asked, tears finally spilling over. "I loved you." "That's your problem," he said, checking his watch. "You thought we were partners. But in the real world, you're just a tool I used to get here. And now, I don't need the tool anymore." "You're firing me?" "I am," he said, turning back to Sasha. "Security will mail you your box. Don't come back to the office, Elena. You don't fit in my future." "You're making a mistake," I said, wiping my face aggressively. "You're going to regret this." Sasha giggled. "Oh, honey. He's the CEO. You're nothing." "You heard her," Julian said, opening the door back to the party. The sound of applause flooded in again. "You are nothing, Elena. Now get out before I have you thrown out." The door slammed shut in my face. I stood there for a full minute, the silence ringing in my ears. Nothing. He said I was nothing. I turned toward the exit door leading to the alley. I pushed it open, stepping out into the cold night rain. The water soaked my dress instantly, mixing with the tears on my face. I looked back at the glowing windows of the hotel. "I am not nothing," I whispered to the rain. "And I will make you pay for every word." My phone buzzed on the nightstand. It was a text from Liam, Julian's assistant. "Mr. Sterling requires you to vacate the corporate apartment by noon today. Security will change the locks." I stared at the screen, my heart numb. Before I could even pack a bag, a heavy knock hammered on the door. It was Mr. Miller, the building manager. "It's barely 10 in the morning, Mr. Miller," I whispered. "I've lived here for 3 years." "And Julian Sterling paid for it for 3 years," he replied. "No payment, no room. Just take your things and go. I don't want any trouble." I stuffed my life into 2 suitcases. I had no savings. Every bonus I earned, I had reinvested into Julian's marketing campaigns. I was broke and homeless. I dragged my bags into the street. The sky opened up, drenching me in seconds. I walked for blocks, my shoes squelching, until I saw the neon sign of the Daily Grind. I pushed inside, shivering. "Elena, is that you?" I looked up. Behind the counter stood Chloe, my best friend from college. Her eyes widened at the sight of me. "Oh my God, you're freezing," she cried, rushing around the counter. "What happened? You look like you climbed out of a river." "He kicked me out, Chloe," I said, my voice cracking. "He dumped me for Sasha Harrison and took everything. The job, the apartment." "That absolute snake," Chloe hissed, wrapping her apron around my shoulders. "Don't say another word. You're coming home with me." "Shut up," she said firmly. "My couch isn't fancy, but it's dry." An hour later, I was lying on Chloe's small, lumpy sofa. The apartment smelled of vanilla and old books. I stared at a long crack in the ceiling. "You okay?" Chloe asked, handing me a mug of hot tea. "No," I said, "I'm not." "I've realized something," I said, my voice turning cold. "Julian thinks he's the genius. I was the brain. He's going to fail without you," Chloe whispered, sitting at the edge of the couch. "I'm sorry, Ms. Vance, we can't move forward with your application. But I have 5 years of experience managing." "Mr. Sterling made a call," the recruiter interrupted, his tone pitying but firm. "He indicated you were let go for gross misconduct. You're blacklisted, Elena. Good luck." I dropped my phone onto Chloe's couch, burying my face in my hands. 2 weeks, 10 interviews, 0 offers. My phone buzzed again. Unknown caller. "Hello?" "Hello?" I answered, my voice dull. "Elena Vance?" A woman's voice, crisp and cold as ice, cut through the line. "Be at the Vanguard Global Tower in 1 hour. Top floor. Do not be late. Who is this?" "I'm not interested in. I didn't ask if you were interested." The call ended. Vanguard Global? That was the largest conglomerate in the country. Confused but desperate, I put on my one remaining blazer and took the subway downtown. An hour later, I stood in a corner office that cost more than my entire life's earnings. Behind a massive mahogany desk sat an elderly woman with sharp silver hair and eyes that looked terrifyingly familiar. "Sit," she commanded, not looking up from her papers. I sat, gripping my purse. "Miss Vanguard?" "I don't understand why I'm here." She finally looked up. I froze. "My mother?" "She ran away 25 years ago," the woman said, standing up. She walked to the window. "She wanted a simple life, love, happiness. She raised you to be soft, just like her." She turned back to me, her face hard. "I am Victoria Vanguard." "I am your grandmother." The room spun. My grandmother?" My mother said she was an orphan. "Sleeping on a friend's couch while a mediocre man destroys your hard work." I stiffened. "How do you know about Julian?" "I know he humiliated you. And I know that Sterling Corp is drowning without you." She tossed a black file onto the desk. It was marked acquisition. Sterling Corp. Someone who knows his secrets. "You want me?" "I want the bloodline," she corrected. She pressed a button on her intercom. "Send him in." The heavy oak doors opened. A man walked in. He was tall, wearing a charcoal suit that fit perfectly. His eyes were dark, intelligent, and completely unreadable. "This is Marcus," Victoria said, "my right hand." He didn't smile. "She looks broken, Victoria." "I'm not broken," I said, standing up to meet his gaze. "I'm angry." "We can work with anger." Victoria sat back down. "Good, then let's begin." "Sign," Victoria said, tapping the paper. "Once I sign this, there is no going back?" I asked. "None. Elena Vance ceases to exist. Elena Vanguard takes her place." I picked up the pen. The ink flowed dark on the page. Done. "Walk," Marcus commanded. I walked across the marble floor of the penthouse. "Stop," he barked. "You walk like you're apologizing for taking up space. Shoulders back. Chin up. Look at me like I'm an employee you're about to fire. It feels unnatural, I argued, correcting my posture. Power is unnatural, he countered, circling me like a shark. It is forged, again, weeks bled into one another. I just offered you a terrible deal and you blinked. That tells me you're desperate. You were yelling, I snapped. Julian will do worse than yell, he said, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous octave. He will try to hurt you. If you cry, you lose. Kill the emotions, Alina, kill the girl who loved him. I took a deep breath, walling off my heart. I'm not crying. I'm calculating. Good, now reject my offer. Your offer is insulting, I said, my voice steady. Get out of my office. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Better. Then came the physical purge. Pastels and florals are for the weak. And the hair? I asked, touching my long waves. Too soft, he said. I sat in the stylist's chair. Cut it, sharp bob. Jet black. When I looked in the mirror, Alina the ghostwriter was gone. A stranger stared back, sleek, cold, and expensive. Late nights were for the numbers. I spread Sterling Corp's ledgers across the mahogany table. He's draining the liquidity to pay for Sasha's lifestyle. Marcus leaned over my shoulder, his presence warm against my back. He's sloppy. He thinks no one checks these, I muttered. He thinks you aren't checking them, Marcus corrected. He placed a fresh cup of coffee near my hand. It was a small gesture, but for a second his eyes softened. You're terrifying when you're focused, Alina. Is that a compliment? From me? It's the highest praise. By the end of the third month, I stood by the window, watching the city below. Are you ready? Marcus asked from the doorway. The fear was gone, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. I'm not just ready, Marcus, I said, buttoning my tailored blazer. I'm hungry. Then let's go hunting, he said, holding the door. I stepped out of the black town car, the towering glass facade of Sterling Corp reflecting my new silhouette. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage, but I forced my breathing to slow. Kill the emotions, Marcus had drilled into me. You are not Elena Vance today. You are a shark. I adjusted my dark sunglasses and pushed through the revolving doors. At the reception desk sat Liam, Julian's assistant. He looked 10 years older than the last time I saw him 3 months ago. His tie was loose and he was frantically typing. Excuse me, I said, pitching my voice lower, colder. I'm here for the audit. Liam looked up, squinting through his glasses. I'm sorry, do we have an appointment? Mr. Sterling is very busy. He's not seeing vendors. I'm not a vendor, I said, leaning on the desk. I'm the acquisition auditor from Vanguard Global. Liam's eyes widened, the color draining from his face. Vanguard? Oh, God. Right. Sorry. They didn't tell us you were coming today. He paused, tilting his head to the side. Have we met before? You look familiar. I offered a sharp, razor-thin smile. I have a common face. I walked past him before he could look closer. The elevator ride was agonizingly slow. I watched the numbers tick up, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. When the doors opened, I marched straight to conference room B. I pushed the door open without knocking. He looked exhausted. His suit, usually immaculate, was wrinkled and there were dark circles under his eyes. Sasha sat next to him, filing her nails, looking bored out of her mind. Who are you? Julian snapped, not looking up from a pile of papers. I told Liam no interruptions. I'm not an interruption, Mr. Sterling, I said, stepping into the room and letting the heavy door click shut behind me. I'm your reality check. Julian's head snapped up. He stared at me. My hair was sharp and black, my suit tailored to perfection, my eyes hidden behind dark lenses. He didn't know it was me. Not yet. He smoothed his suit jacket, trying to regain his composure. I wasn't expecting ... a woman. We live in modern times, Julian, I said. He froze. His mouth opened slightly. Your voice ... He murmured, stepping closer. It sounds ... My name is Miss Vanguard, I interrupted, extending a hand. I'm here to decide if your company is worth buying or burying. He shook my hand. His palm was damp. Vanguard? I didn't know the family was involved directly. And looking at these quarterly reports, risky is a generous word. Those reports are solid, Julian argued, though his voice wavered. Are they? I flipped the folder open, slamming it onto the table. Page 4. Your marketing ROI has dropped 40% since, let's see, 3 months ago. Coincidentally. The market is volatile, he stammered, sweat appearing on his brow. The market is fine, I cut him off. The copy is weak. The strategy is incoherent. It looks like it was written by an amateur. I wrote that strategy, Sasha interjected, glaring at me. I glanced at her, then back to Julian. Exactly, amateur? Julian stared at me, a flicker of recognition warring with confusion behind his eyes. You remind me of someone. Someone I used to know, but she was ... She was what? I challenged, removing my sunglasses slowly to reveal my eyes. He took a breath, searching my face. But the makeup, the hair, the clothes, it was enough to throw him off. Never mind. She was nobody. Good, I said, sitting in the chair opposite him, my old chair. Because I'm the person deciding if you keep your job. Now explain this discrepancy in the tax filings, or I recommend immediate liquidation. I can explain, he said quickly, sitting down. I watched him scramble. It was terrifying to be this close, but seeing him so small, so incompetent without me ... It was intoxicating. Turn to page 12 of the audit, I said, my voice slicing through the tense silence of the boardroom. You will notice a discrepancy of $2 million under miscellaneous expenses. Mr. Henderson, the oldest board member and a man who had never liked Julian, leaned forward. He adjusted his spectacles, his brow furrowing. Julian, what is this? Julian loosened his tie. He was sweating. It's a clerical error, Henderson, a categorization mistake. My team is fixing it. It's not a clerical error, I corrected, not looking up from my tablet. It's a funnel. That money was transferred to a private account associated with the renovation of the CEO's penthouse. The room erupted in murmurs. That's a lie, Julian shouted, standing up. She wants to devalue the stock so they can buy it cheap. I want to ensure Vanguard Global isn't buying a sinking ship, I shot back, meeting his gaze. And right now, Mr. Sterling, you are the leak in the hull. Julian is a visionary, Sasha piped up from the corner. I slowly turned my head to look at her. Miss Harrison, unless you can explain the EBITDA ratio on page 15, I suggest you remain silent. This is a boardroom, not a social club. Sasha opened her mouth, then closed it, her face turning a blotchy red. She slumped back in her chair, silenced. This is unacceptable, Julian, Mr. Henderson said, slamming the file shut. If you are using company funds for personal assets, the board will act. Bob, please, let me explain over dinner, Julian tried, flashing a signature smile. It was the smile that used to melt my heart. Now it just looked desperate. Save your charm for your fiancé, Henderson snapped. Meeting adjourned. You, Julian whispered. I didn't answer. I walked out the double doors and pressed the button for the elevator. As the doors slid open, a hand jammed between them. Julian stepped inside. The doors closed, trapping us in the small, mirrored box. The air instantly felt too thin. He stared at me, his eyes searching every inch of my face. He looked at the way I held my briefcase, the way I stood. The voice, he muttered. I stared straight ahead at the numbers changing on the panel. I'm just doing my job, Mr. Sterling. Stop it, he yelled, grabbing my arm. I ripped my arm away and glared at him. Elena? He breathed, his voice trembling. Is that ... Is that you? My heart slammed against my ribs, but I didn't blink. I reached up and slowly removed my sunglasses. I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. Elena is gone, I said softly. You're not doing very well. The elevator dinged. You're losing the board, Julian. Fix this or I step in. The voice shouting through the phone was unmistakable. I have a plan, Dad. Julian yelled back from his office down the hall. By tomorrow, the auditor will be gone. I promise. I sat in the adjacent room, listening to the muffled argument. So that's the play. My computer screen blinked. A red notification popped up, outgoing transfer, Project Alpha blueprints to Axiom Industries. He's framing me for corporate espionage, I whispered, staring at the screen. I watched the progress bar hit 100%. From my terminal, it looked like I had just sold Sterling Corp's biggest secret to their main rival. In the past, I would have burst into tears. I would have run to him begging for mercy. I picked up my phone. Marcus, I said, bring your laptop. He didn't ask questions, just pulled a chair up next to mine. The office was dark, lit only by the blue glow of our monitors. He's trying to get you disbarred and fired, Marcus noted, his fingers flying across the keys. It's clumsy. Let's see where the command originated. We watched the black terminal screen fill with green text. Got you? Marcus muttered. Who? The IP address resolves to the local Wi-Fi, he said. Device name, Sasha's MacBook Pro. I laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. She did it from the guest's Wi-Fi? She didn't even mask her IP? They are arrogant, Marcus said, leaning back. His shoulder brushed mine, sending a jolt of electricity through me. I can reverse this. I can send this proof to the board right now. Robert will fire him tonight. I stared at the screen. I imagined Julian in his office, pouring a drink, thinking he had finally outsmarted me. No, I said. I want him to stand up in front of everyone and accuse me. You want public execution, Marcus realized, his voice low. If he manipulates the narrative ... The air in the small office grew heavy, charged with something that wasn't just adrenaline. You've changed, Elena, he murmured. The woman I met 3 months ago would have run. You told me to kill the weak parts of myself, I reminded him. I did, he said, a rare, genuine smile touching his lips. Let him think he won, Marcus. Let him sleep soundly. As you wish, Marcus said, closing the laptop. But when he falls, I want front row seats. The heavy scent of white lily hit me the moment I walked into the ballroom. It was the exact same smell from a year ago, the smell of my humiliation. But tonight I wasn't wearing a discount dress. I was wearing a custom crimson gown that cost more than Julian's car. Champagne, Miss Vanguard? A waiter asked, bowing slightly. Thank you, I said, taking the flute. I stood near the center of the room, chin high. Across the floor I saw him, Julian. He was laughing with a group of investors, clutching a glass of scotch. When his eyes landed on me, his smile faltered, then sharpened into a smirk. He said something to the group, excused himself, and walked straight toward me. You have a lot of nerve showing your face here, Julian said, stopping just inside my personal space. I'm the guest of honor, Julian, I replied, sipping my drink. I represent the parent company. Or did you forget who owns you now? Not for long, he whispered, leaning in. His breath smelled of expensive scotch and arrogance. I spoke to the board this morning. We traced the leak. We know you sent the blueprints to Axiom. I raised an eyebrow. Is that so? Don't play dumb, he hissed. We have the logs. The police are waiting in the lobby. I'm just letting you have one last drink before they drag you out in handcuffs. You seem very confident for a man who hasn't checked his server logs in an hour, I said calmly. I checked enough, he sneered. I told you a year ago, Elena, you were always nothing. Just a placeholder until the real players arrived. And tonight, I prove it. Then go, I gestured to the stage. Prove it. He glared at me one last time, then buttoned his jacket and strode toward the podium. The lights dimmed. The room fell silent. Ladies and gentlemen, Julian's voice boomed, oozing charm. Thank you for joining us. It has been a challenging year, but a profitable one. Sasha stood in the front row, beaming up at him. She shot me a look of pure malice. Tonight, Julian continued, I want to show you the future of Sterling Corp. Our growth has been unprecedented. He raised the remote. Let's look at the numbers. He clicked the button. The massive LED screen behind him flickered. But it didn't show a bar graph. A grainy black and white video appeared. It showed a woman creeping into a dark office. The camera zoomed in. It was Sasha. She sat at a desk my desk and inserted a USB drive into the computer. The room went deadly silent. Julian turned around, confused by the lack of applause. He stammered, hitting the remote frantically. Turn it off. Technical difficulties. Action. Planting false evidence. That's not real. Sasha shrieked from the front row, standing up. He faked it. It looks very real to me, Mr. Henderson said loudly from a nearby table. Julian stood paralyzed on stage, the remote shaking in his hand. The murmurs in the crowd turned into gasps and laughter. He looked small. He looked defeated. I set my glass down on a passing tray. The click of my heels on the marble stairs echoed through the silent room. I walked up the steps, the crimson fabric of my dress flowing behind me like a flag of war. I reached Julian. He looked at me, his eyes wide with terror. Elena, please, he whispered, the microphone picking up his desperate plea. I gently took the microphone from his frozen hand. I turned to the crowd, then looked back at him. Transparency is key in business, Julian, I said, my voice ringing clear through the speakers. And it looks like your transparency just cost you everything. The heavy oak doors of the VIP room slammed shut, muting the music from the gala outside, but the shouting inside was deafening. This is a setup, Julian screamed, pacing frantically. He ripped his bow tie off and threw it on the floor. She doctored that footage. It's deepfake technology. Sit down, Julian, Mr. Henderson barked, his face red with fury. We are idiots. We saw the timestamp. We saw the login credentials. It's a lie. Julian turned to the corner of the room where his father sat. Dad, tell them this is insane. She's trying to steal the company. Robert Sterling sat in the leather armchair, staring into his glass of scotch. He didn't look up. Dad? Julian's voice cracked, sounding like a frightened child. I called this emergency meeting to discuss the immediate future of Sterling Corp, I said, walking to the head of the long mahogany table. My voice was calm, contrasting sharply with Julian's hysteria. Get away from there, Julian spat, stepping toward me. That's my chair. Not anymore, I said, slamming a thick legal document onto the table. The sound echoed like a gunshot. According to Clause 4B of the acquisition agreement signed by Vanguard Global, Julian laughed nervously, looking around at the board members. It was ... it was a prank. A misunderstanding. It was corporate espionage, fraud, an attempt to frame a federal auditor. And since Vanguard Global now holds 51% of the voting rights pending this review, I'm triggering the clause. You can't just take my company. I already have, I said, my eyes locking onto his. Mr. Henderson, I propose a motion to remove Julian Sterling as CEO, effective immediately. On the grounds of gross negligence and unethical conduct. Seconded, Henderson said without hesitation. All in favor? I asked, looking around the room. Henderson's hand went up. Then the CFOs. Then the 3 other board members. We built this together. I looked at Robert. The older man finally looked up. His eyes were tired, filled with a mixture of disappointment and resignation. He looked at his son, then at me. He slowly raised his hand. Dad, Julian screamed. I'm your son. You're a liability, Julian, Robert said quietly, his voice hoarse. You always have been. You nearly bankrupted us twice. I can't cover for you anymore. Motion passed, I announced. Julian, you are relieved of your duties. Julian stumbled back as if physically struck. His face twisted into a mask of pure, ugly hatred. He lunged toward me, but 2 large security guards stepped into his path. You think you're special? He screamed, straining against the guards holding his arms. I made you. You were a nobody ghostwriter until I picked you up. You owe me everything. You're nothing without me. The room went silent. I looked at him, feeling absolutely nothing. No fear, no love, just pity. You didn't make me, Julian, I said, my voice steady and cold. I wrote your speeches. I fixed your messes. I built your reputation while you took the credit. You're nothing, he shrieked. You didn't make me, I repeated, leaning in close. You just held me back. I turned to the board. I accept the nomination for CEO. Agreed, Henderson said. Welcome aboard, Ms. Vanguard. Get him out of my building, I ordered. As they dragged him out, I sat in the chair. It felt right. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window of the new CEO's office. This was Julian's old office. It felt surreal to be here, not as an assistant or a hidden brain, but as the owner. My name was already being engraved on the door. Through the glass, I watched the sidewalk far below. 2 security guards were walking Julian to a taxi. He clutched a single cardboard box, his shoulders slumped in a way I'd never seen before. Where is his better half? Marcus asked, leaning against the doorframe. Gone, I replied without turning around. The moment the board voted, Sasha's lawyers were already calling. She only wanted the CEO's wife title. A disgraced ex-CEO is just a liability to her family name. That is poetic justice, Marcus said. A soft knock followed and Chloe poked her head in. She was carrying 2 cheap paper cups from her shop. Special delivery for the most powerful woman in the city, she chirped. She looked around the massive, marble-accented room and whistled. Wow, I feel like I need a tuxedo just to stand on this carpet. I laughed, the first real laugh in many days, and took a cup from her. It's just an office, Chloe. No, it's a kingdom, she corrected, her face softening. She sat on the edge of the mahogany desk. But you look like you're carrying the weight of the world, Elle. Have you even closed your eyes? I'm just exhausted, I admitted, the steam from the coffee hitting my face. It's like the adrenaline finally ran out and left me empty. You earned the right to be tired, Chloe said. You won. I looked down at the security monitors on the corner of the desk. The lobby feed showed a commotion. Julian was back at the glass doors, looking disheveled and desperate. He was shouting at the receptionist, his face red. He won't leave, Marcus said, his voice turning cold as he stepped toward the monitor. He's been out there for 20 minutes, demanding to see you. He's making the clients uncomfortable. He looks like a vagrant. What does he think he's going to achieve? Chloe asked, her lip curling in disgust. Does he think you'll just give him his job back? He thinks he can still charm his way out of a grave he dug himself, Marcus said. He looked at me, his hand hovering over the desk phone. Do you want me to have security remove him? I can have the police trespass him. He doesn't belong in this building anymore. I watched Julian on the screen. He looked so small from this height. A year ago, his voice was law to me. Now he was just noise. No, I said, putting my coffee down on the desk with a firm click. No? Marcus asked, surprised. Let him up, I said, looking Marcus directly in the eye. I want to hear exactly what he has to say. Let him in, Marcus. I am ready to listen. The heavy door clicked open. Marcus stood aside, his face impassive, letting the ghost of my past stumble in. Julian looked like a ruin of a man. His designer suit was rumpled, his tie was missing, and a dark shadow of stubble covered his usually pristine jawline. But it was his eyes that gave him away, bloodshot, frantic, and terrified. Elena, he croaked, stepping toward the desk, my desk. Sit down, Julian, I said, my voice devoid of warmth. He collapsed into the guest chair, running a shaking hand through his hair. I knew you'd see me. I knew you still cared. I was curious, I corrected, leaning back in the leather chair. There's a difference. Don't be like that, he pleaded, trying to summon that old magnetic smile. It looked painful now. Remember the weekend in Aspen? The way we talked about the future? We were a team, Elle. We were magic together. We were never a team, I said flatly. I was the engine. You were the hood ornament? That's not fair, he said quickly, leaning forward. I was under pressure. The market was shifting. Sasha ... She was just a distraction, a moment of weakness. She meant nothing to me. You know that, right? You're the only one who ever really understood me. He reached across the mahogany surface, his fingers trembling as they sought mine. I pulled my hand back sharply as if he were burning coal. Do not touch me, I commanded. He flinched, pulling his hand back to his chest like a scolded child. Elena, please. I'm drowning here. The board froze my severance. My accounts are locked pending the investigation. That is standard procedure for embezzlement, I noted, picking up a pen just to have something to hold. I didn't embezzle, I just borrowed. He cried, his voice rising in panic. I have the mortgage on the penthouse. The lease on the Aston Martin. I have debts, Elena, bad debts. If I don't have an income by Friday, they take everything. I'll be on the street. You have a degree, Julian. Apply for a job. I can't start over. He slammed his hand on the armrest, his eyes wild. I'm a CEO. I'm a visionary. I can't work in a cubicle. You're a liability, I said calmly. He took a ragged breath, changing tactics again. His voice dropped to a desperate beg. Hire me back. Not a CEO. Make me a consultant, a silent partner. You need someone who knows the clients, Elena. You need someone who knows how to run this place. I stared at him for a long moment. Then a dry, humorless laugh escaped my lips. You think I need you to tell me how to do my job? I asked. I'm just saying it's a big company. I ran this place for 5 years, Julian. I cut him off, my voice sharp as a blade. I wrote the emails you signed. I negotiated the deals you took credit for. I managed the crises you caused. I don't need your help, Elena. He whispered, his face crumbling. I never needed your help, I said, watching the last shred of his pride shatter behind his eyes. I only needed you to get out of my way. The silence in the office was heavy, broken only by the ragged sound of Julian's breathing. He stared at me, his mouth opening and closing as the reality of his situation finally crashed down on him. "You really don't care," he whispered, his voice trembling. "I'm standing here telling you my life is over and you're just watching." "I'm watching the consequences of your actions, Julian," I said, my voice steady. "It's a different view from this side of the desk, isn't it?" His face crumbled. Tears, hot and fast, spilled over his lashes. He didn't wipe them away. "I can't lose this," he sobbed, his legs giving out. He sank to the floor. I watched, unmoving, as the man who had once strutted through this building like a god fell to his knees on the plush carpet. He crawled forward until he reached my chair, his hands grasping for the hem of my skirt like a drowning man clutching driftwood. "Get up, Julian," I said, pulling my skirt away from his grip. "Have some dignity." "I don't have dignity," he cried, looking up at me. His face was wet, blotchy, and pathetic. "I don't have anything." "I was jealous, okay? Is that what you want to hear?" "I was jealous of you." I paused. "Jealous?" "You were always better at it," he choked out, wiping his nose on his sleeve. "Every time you fixed a problem I couldn't solve, every time you wrote a speech that made me look like a genius. I hated it. I hated needing you." "So you tried to destroy me," I said softly. "I wanted to be the one in control for once," he wailed. "I thought if I cut you loose, I could prove I didn't need you. But I was wrong. I was so wrong. Please, Elena, you have to help me." "I have nothing." I looked down at him. For a split second, I felt a pang in my chest. I remembered the nights we used to order takeout, the way he used to hold me when I was tired. I saw the fear in his eyes, raw and real. But then another memory overlaid it. I remembered the rain. I remembered shivering in a coffee shop with $5 to my name. I remembered the laughter in his eyes when he told me I was disposable. The pity vanished, replaced by cold steel. To forgive him now would be an insult to the girl who survived that storm. "Do you remember what you told me that night?" I asked, leaning forward slightly. He blinked, confusion swimming in his tear-filled eyes. "What?" "You told me I was nothing," I reminded him, my voice soft but lethal. "You said I was just a tool, a nobody." "I didn't mean it. You meant every word." I cut him off. "But look at us now, Julian." I gestured to the office, to the city skyline behind me, and finally to him kneeling on the floor. "Now I am everything," I said. "And you? You are finally the nothing you were so afraid of becoming." He froze, his mouth falling open in a silent scream of realization. I reached out and pressed the intercom button on my desk. "Security," I said calmly into the speaker. "Please remove the trespasser from my office. And make sure he doesn't come back." "The Clean Water Initiative just hit the quarterly targets," I said, adjusting my scarf against the crisp autumn breeze. "We are up 15% in profit, and we actually did something good." Marcus walked beside me, hands deep in his coat pockets. "That is what happens when you lead with transparency, Elena. The market responds to truth." "Julian always told me ethics were for nonprofits," I mused, kicking a stray leaf on the path. "He said you had to choose between being rich and being good." He truly believed that cruelty was a necessary part of business. "Julian was a fool," Marcus replied, his voice low and certain. "You proved him wrong in less than 6 months." "We proved him wrong," I corrected. Marcus stopped and turned to me. The city park was bustling with life, but in this moment it felt like just the two of us. "No, you did the heavy lifting." "I just held the door open." His hand brushed against mine. It wasn't an accident. I felt the warmth of his skin, a steady, grounding presence. It was so different from the frantic, desperate need I used to feel with Julian, where I was constantly begging for scraps of affection. This wasn't dependency. It was respect. "Are you nervous about the gala tonight?" he asked, his eyes searching mine. "A little," I admitted. "It's my first time hosting as the official owner. You will be perfect," he said. "You aren't the same woman who walked into my office a year ago." "No," I agreed. "I think she's gone." My phone buzzed in my pocket, breaking the moment I pulled it out. A text from Chloe popped up on the screen. "Chloe, oh my God, you will not believe this. I'm at the Tech Expo. Guess who's working the Axiom booth handing out flyers? Julian. He looks 10 years older. He saw me and hid." "Do you want me to snap a pic?" I stared at the words. A year ago, I would have paid to see that photo. I would have printed it out and framed it. I would have felt a surge of vicious triumph. Now I felt nothing. He was just a footnote in my history. Everything okay? Marcus asked, tilting his head. It's Chloe, I said. Is it important? I looked at the message one last time. Julian was a ghost, a bad memory. He didn't deserve my anger anymore. He certainly didn't deserve my time. No, I said. It's not important at all. I swiped left, delete. I slipped the phone back into my pocket and looked up. Through the canopy of golden leaves, I could see the skyline. The massive glass tower of Vanguard Sterling rose above the rest, gleaming in the sunlight. It was a monument to my pain and to my victory. I had been broken, discarded, and told I was nothing. But I had taken every shard of that shattered glass and built a throne. I looked at Marcus and smiled a real free smile. Ready to go? I asked, reaching out to take his hand. Ready when you are, he replied, his fingers interlocking with mine. I squeezed his hand. I wasn't just a survivor anymore. I was a queen. And my reign was just beginning.